The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All righty, here we go. We are loaded up today. As you know, Tuesday means John Adams, brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. We'll visit with John Adams in hour number 2, but an absolutely loaded show. In case you haven't heard, it's Tennessee, Oklahoma this week, and Josh Heupel goes back home. And apparently you're pretty interested in that because we set a new record for views when we talked about Josh Heupel's return. So a lot to get to on the program today, including, could Dylan Sampson at some point be in the Heisman race? Is Nico ready to be under the lights this day in Tennessee sports history? The Vols have a gigantic deficit to overcome in the turnover margin. That's the way Oklahoma wins football games. You can read about it on offthehooksports.com. But I'm going to tell you in a bit why I don't think it's a major concern. The stat of the day, and then with John Adams, we'll talk about Tennessee OU could be a mismatch. Is Josh Heupel out for revenge versus OU? Our football IQ segment with John. And also, there is an Oklahoma radio host that mocked Josh Heupel's appearance. And that was something that plagued Philip Fulmer for a number of years. I can remember the media that didn't like him had a specific name for him. I'm not going to share it, but it was very unflattering. And I think it's pretty lowbrow, to be real honest with you. So hit that like and subscribe button if you want to be a part of the program. We greatly appreciate that. I'm going to try not to go off on this guy, Caleb. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm well.
Just so you know, no one's ever made fun of my appearance, but yeah, it's
because you're so darn handsome. But, I'm carrying a couple of extra pounds. I've been a fat guy before, so I feel like I can speak to this. I don't know that I'm a fat guy now, but I've been a fat guy three times or 4 in my life. So I try to stay in shape now, but I don't believe that either way that it's an indication of the work you put in. And I don't understand. I don't want to shame people. Okay. And I don't think that's the right way to go about hosting a radio show. So I never discussed Philip Fulmer being overweight. We've never discussed that with Josh Heupel, yet Oklahoma wants to bring it up. This seems to be more personal for Oklahoma and their fans than it is for Tennessee, Caleb. And based off our video with John Hoover, who covers Oklahoma, I just went through the roof. I think you would agree that's the case. I mean, it seems, I thought the personal side would be on Josh Heupel, but it's almost like deep down Oklahoma fans, and we'll talk more about it later, don't want to admit it, but they would rather have Josh Heupel as their head coach.
There is a clear level of insecurity here because
that is the best choice of words maybe at any time you've ever picked on this program. Insecurity. I mean, that nails it.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is, you're right. It's not just about not having Josh Heupel. It's about because here's the real point. They're stuck with Brent Venables. Okay. They wouldn't be saying this stuff otherwise. It's very similar to, a lot of people liked him now, but Dave, don't you think one of the reasons it wasn't just the kneeling them in the 90s that Tennessee fans hated Spurrier? They somewhat hated Spurrier because they felt they let him get out of Tennessee, right?
Yes.
And they can never let that go, right?
Yes. Okay, let me ask you this. I want to ask a real simple question for our poll question. And if you don't mind, Go ahead and put that up. Our poll question will be on YouTube, and here's what it is. I want to ask the Oklahoma-Tennessee rivalry. Well, the Oklahoma-Tennessee series, will it become a rivalry? However you want to phrase it. Is it already a rivalry because of the Josh Heupel connection? You phrase it however you want to. And we'll have the poll question up, brought to you by the UPS store in Hardin Valley, here to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services locally owned and operated and conveniently located at 10629 Hardin Valley Road, 10629 Hardin Valley Road. So let's just dive into it right now. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. I was just there yesterday. Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Banks for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better. Caleb has to convince me of this. Bank on it, he says. Dylan Sampson will be a Heisman candidate. Wowzers. Caleb, do you really think that?
Dylan Sampson is one of the, and guys, nobody's eating more crow than me about this, okay, because I did not think he'd be able to be the starter because of his pass pro. But Dylan Sampson, according to certain advanced metrics, is the SEC's highest graded running back so far this year. Now, funny enough, Deshaun Bishop is second, but Dylan Sampson has played against real competition more often than Deshaun Bishop has. But Dylan Sampson is the highest graded running back by far. He is one of the top 10 rushers in touchdowns and in total yards, and running backs still make a run for the Heisman. If Tennessee stays committed to this run game and teams stay committed to taking away the deep ball against Nico the way they have been so far, because they're still so scared of what Hendon Hooker did in 2022, Dylan Sampson is going to be in New York at the end of the year. I mean, there's no question about it.
Okay, I got a couple of issues with that, and I am a Heisman voter, so hit that like and subscribe on it. Hit that like and subscribe. It's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. And I'm going to tell you why Dylan Sampson will not be in New York, will not be a true Heisman candidate, although I think Caleb is onto something, and he doesn't often admit he's wrong, which is pretty strong. Okay, I'll tell you what, 30 seconds, Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Okay, Caleb, here's reason number one that Dylan Sampson can't be a Heisman Trophy candidate, because a lot of Heisman voters are lazy. They're going to think this is Nico, even if Dylan Sampson is a bigger impact player this season. That's number one. Number two, it has become a quarterback award. It used to be a running back award, but now it's a quarterback award. And I think you would probably agree with that. The last 8, 7 have been quarterbacks. So he'll be overshadowed by Nico. He doesn't play a position that often garners more attention for the award. So, Caleb, what do you make of those two arguments? And then I've got a third that has to do with a certain guy named Peyton that I'm going to share with you here in just a moment.
All right, so I'll break this down in every way. So it's more of a quarterback award for 2 reasons. College football has become more pass-happy, quarterback-oriented with offensive systems. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And then the other one is that most places, similar to the NFL, running backs are by committee now, right? So they're just not going to get enough carries like they used to.
Yes.
That's not happening with Tennessee right now. I didn't see this coming. But one, Josh Heupel, as an offensive guru whose offense puts up like 40 points a game, probably relies on the run game more than any other coach, more than any other offensive system in college football. Is that also fair to say?
Yes.
Then there's also the fact that as of right now, one thing I said hasn't changed, which is I'm not sure Tennessee has another running back they feel like they can rely on to split reps with Dylan Sampson Deshaun Bishop has played well, but not against real competition. So I think Dylan Sampson is going to get a disproportionate amount of carries relative to what they usually want running backs to get. All of those things thrown in together means, so he's in a more run-happy offense than most offenses. He is not a by committee starter like most running backs. And then, so that automatically adds where you would think a running back gets 10 to 12 carries. I think in many big games, Dylan Sampson could end up finding himself getting 20 to 25 carries. But then the other part about this that's huge is, guys, you all have watched the games that I have. Ever since Hendon Hooker in 2022, it seems like every team Tennessee has played has said, we are not going to let the deep ball beat us. We're going to make them work the field. They are willing to let those running backs get 7, 8, 9 yards a play. They don't want to get beat over the top. I mean, I'm noticing that more and more every time Tennessee plays somebody. There's a commitment from defenses to not get beat over the top, which is what the entire passing offense is based off of. So, and Heupel has shown, to his credit, he doesn't get impatient. If you're not going to let him beat you over the top, he will run it and run it and run it down your throat if he has to.
Okay, so I get that. And the offensive line I think, should be an argument on your side too, because I think they can push people around. And I don't think Josh Heupel's had a full offensive line. He's had guys that can push people around, but this team can really push people around. All right, message board, tell me if this makes you mad at me, okay, if you want to. But I think there's a Peyton factor. And you thought I was going to say Peyton Manning, right? No,
yes.
It's Peyton Lewis. I think he is too special to not ascend and take some of the carries at some point in the season and be the number 2 back and get some first team reps as well. So it sounds like I'm ripping on Deshaun Bishop, who I'm not ripping on the walk-on. Everybody loves the walk-on, okay? But hit like and subscribe if you think Peyton Lewis is going to be a factor in a game this year, because I do. And I think it's just going to take some time. I see his ascension being much similar to Jamal Lewis's. Not saying he's as good, and not saying any of that, any comparison, but I think he's in that realm. And if he can handle pass pro and you have an off week after Oklahoma and you feel comfortable, I'm not saying that Peyton Lewis is going to take over for Dylan Sampson, but I could see times in short yardage where you really like his power. I could see times when you want to batter people, you take Sampson out of the game. In other words, I believe at some point in October, we'll be talking about Dylan Sampson and Peyton Lewis as being tailbacks 1 and 2. And therefore, when you look at the two, no offense against Sampson, but Peyton Lewis is a monster. You're going to say physically that guy is better. So those that do pay attention to Tennessee, they're going to say, well, Sampson may not even be the best running back on the team.
Yes, but, Dave, I think a lot of times with the way this offense works, Josh Heupel doesn't like to change personnel mid-season. And we saw this 2 years ago. 2 years ago, look, after watching last year, it's as clear as day that Jalen Wright was always better than Jabari Small, right? But
yes. I think Jabari Small was the ultimate. I'm doing everything right, but physically I'm an average football player, and I don't mean that as a knock.
I don't either. I have a lot of respect for what he did. I'll except for the fact that he made a short-sighted decision. He should have come back this year because he still would have been the feature back. My thing with
he didn't have good guidance. May I just share something?
Yeah, sure.
He was going to be a part of Off the Hook Sports, and the Vol Report had extensive conversations with the family, and then just kind of fell off the map. And I think that likely he signed the contract from Spire, and if you don't tell them that you don't want exclusivity in that contract, they'll do that. So I don't think he had good guidance, and honestly, I empathize/sympathize for him and his plight at Tennessee, because if he's back this year, he is playing a part. He's a part of an incredible backfield now that we know what Sampson's done.
And this is Dave why he went nuclear on Spire Sports, because he realized they were preying on athletes more than they were supporting them. And so, yeah. Okay, so back to the point of 2022, though. Jalen Wright was hurt during fall camp, kind of had a fumble issue because he was getting back healthy early on in the year. He was better by October, but Jabari Small stayed the starter the whole year because it was just a rhythm thing. So even if what you're saying is true, that may reduce Dylan Sampson's carries, but I still think Dylan Sampson is going to stay the number one back all year. Now, where that bolsters your argument is, I'm thinking Dylan Sampson could rack up so many early September stats that he stays the Heisman frontrunner, but you have told me 1,000 times over, and you are right on this, you don't win the Heisman in September, you just lose the Heisman in September. And so it's not, so even if that's all true, Dylan Sampson would have to have some big game in some moment in November, i.e. against Georgia, where he would go off, and then people say, okay, he's got to be in New York for the Heisman ceremony. That's going to be tricky if he's splitting reps with Peyton Lewis. But again, when you're the all-purpose back, you know this, Dave, from the Reggie Bush days. I'm not saying Dylan Sampson's Reggie Bush, but I am saying that you get there's a lot of different ways you can touch the ball and rack up stats. And Reggie Bush won the Heisman not because of any stats, because he pushed his quarterback into the end zone for a play against Notre Dame.
Very true. All right. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Join us. Tell me what you think. Let's take a look at the message board for un momento. Sampson sitting behind Small. Derek says, I don't think so. Shaking my head. I knew that last year. Yeah, I think Sampson was a pretty special player, and his teammates knew it as well. I do think in the middle of the season last year, pass pro was an issue. And probably the bowl game a little bit, but I don't want to dive into that because he's playing incredibly well now. So kudos to him. Now, I think my one argument you would have trouble overcoming is Nico's pretty special. I mean, if anybody's going to win a Heisman in Tennessee, it's probably going to be Nico, right?
Yes, Nico is still my Heisman pick. I put money on him to win the Heisman, but it's going to be hard for him. And again, Dave, I kind of empathize if you're a quarterback who chooses to play for Tennessee right now because it's supposed to be quarterback friendly, but look at what defenses are doing. Am I just seeing things, or are they really just committed to making sure they don't get beat over the top?
You're not seeing things. That's exactly 110% right. And I love the fact that Josh Heupel isn't getting frustrated over it at all. It's almost like he's taking a little CBD that you can get from the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to only ensure you receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. The promo code HOOK for 10% off. It must be hard for Josh Heupel not to throw the deep ball as often because defenses are dropping back. I mean, that's his greatest weapon. It would be like if I didn't have these golden tones. Today's tone question is now the show represented.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks. I mean, if I couldn't use that, where would we be?
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Should we be concerned about Nico Iamaleava underneath the lights? Well, let's reset the poll question, if you don't mind, to that. I'm going to tell you why I'm not concerned at all. Nico has said previously he prefers playing on the road, and Nico also has a common attribute that Casey Clausen had. He was not born and raised in the South, so he sees some perspective in SEC football. If you're born and raised, the Iron Bowl is a great example. Somebody gets shot after every single Iron Bowl, every single year. Okay, I love football, faith, family football, but my goodness, I'm not going to shoot anybody. I don't expect to be shot after any game, no matter how it ends. So I think Nico has the perspective that Casey has, and if he has success, it'll never work against him. Now, if something goes wrong, people could say, oh, he doesn't care enough because he's from California. No, I think he has perspective, and he cares plenty, Caleb, but I just think he's the typical cool, calm California guy like Casey. Casey wanted to win as much as anybody, and so does Nico. But they're not going to jump off the Gay Street Bridge if things don't go their way one Saturday. Do you see the point I'm making there?
Oh, I absolutely see the point. So the poll question is this: should the Vols be concerned about Nico Iamaleava under the lights? Yes, it's his first SEC road game. No, he won't let it get to him. No, not being from SEC land helps. And wait, I got one more. No, Oklahoma's not really SEC anyway.
It's pretty good. All right, so you tell me, should you be concerned whatsoever? It's a night game. It's a true road game, his first. Are you concerned that Nico could fold under the lights?
No, I'm absolutely not concerned. And I asked this question just to say, is he ready for the lights? Because this is his first game away from home. And I'm not concerned about him at all. One, you're right, not being from SEC country helps. Two, Dave, I'm going to go to your point about Polynesian players real quick, but it's when you talk about the stereotype of working hard and things like that, one of the things that comes with that is a lot of them, again, when they play football, they just view it as every play, they're just doing their job, right? They're just doing what they're supposed to do. Like the magnitude, the moments, the moxie, it doesn't get to them as much. It can be frustrating because then there's also, you talk about this with Casey from California, you don't see the umph of like, come on, grab them by their throat and like pull them to victory. But you see the next play, just got to do my job. Just got to do it. And that's all they focus on. It reminds me of, you guys ever watch Nikola Jokic in the NBA? And he's literally so dominant, but he's like, just doing my job. Just got to do my job. That's it. And
okay, well, now for those that don't know, he's ready to get back home. I don't think he's that upset when they lose in the NBA Finals. I think that's an extreme case. I think Nico would be very down and upset. I wouldn't quite compare him because the things I've heard about him is just like, oh no, we lost in semifinal.
Well, you got to – I mean, he comes from a rough family back home, and he probably, I think that's why when the Morris twins picked, long story short, Morris twins picked the fight with him. They don't realize that Eastern European gangs are way more dangerous than any gang in America. But yeah, long story short on that. To the Nico point, though, I think there are certain types of players who they love playing the game, but they view every play as just doing their job, and they don't let any type of moment like. Josh Heupel will say it's the biggest game because it's the next one, and we're going to talk later. No, he's magnifying the Oklahoma game. I think Nico Iamaleava, Dave, is the type of player that's like, it's the biggest game because it's the next one. It's like, I'm just out here to do my job.
I do too. And I don't think and I thought I said this earlier. Maybe I skipped it. It was said on the message board that he prefers, Speed the Faith Outdoor said he prefers playing in road games. So I don't know that Casey ever said he preferred. I think he just said they were the same. But yes, and it was funny. Josh Heupel tried to be diplomatic about that in his press conference. Said, well, there's nothing like playing at home. But you want a guy that says, I want to play on the road. Here's the other thing, too, that we haven't talked about because I don't know how much they'll use it. They have the in-helmet communication. So they said everything's gone smooth there. But I want to go back to an argument that we made previously. And this was last year, and I made this argument, headed into the Georgia game, and that was Tennessee's offense can get off to such a fast start that it can take the crowd out of it. So I guess that was in 2022, right? So, yes. And obviously that didn't work out. But I do think there's something to that. And we're going to get to ball protection a little bit later. And that's the one way Oklahoma can win this game. As long as Tennessee doesn't come out and turn the ball over, Caleb, early, I expect that they could have a lead because that's the way they like to come out and play. Your thoughts after we tell you we're represented by Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. All right, Caleb Moore, your thoughts on Nico's cool, calm demeanor does not mean he's not an absolute fierce competitor. And I used to defend Casey Clausen left and right. And I hope to goodness that if Tennessee loses a game, whether it's this week, Alabama, Georgia, that people don't come back with a response. He just doesn't seem to care enough. Because that dude's put in about 60 hours of work to be better at football, about probably 46 weeks of the year. I'm sure he goes to class. But Caleb, I mean, this guy wants it more than any of us want it for him.
Yeah, and here's the difference. You're leaving out one big part of Casey Clausen. The vibe was not. Yes, there was the unfair vibe that he didn't care, but also he had a level of cockiness to him that I think rubbed people the wrong way too. He was a little cocky, and I don't think Nico has that. Nico has moxie, but I don't know if he has cockiness. Does that make sense? And so I think it's not going to rub people the same way as Casey. I mean, Casey Clausen and Kelly Washington were roommates, and everybody felt that they were head and shoulders above the rest of the team. And that
I never felt like Casey came across as cocky to me. I guess I'm in the minority. Why did you think he was cocky?
Well, there was the whole when Tennessee lost to Georgia in 2002 when he was out and he comes out and he's like, if I was playing, we would have won by 2 touchdowns. I mean, remember that?
But was he right?
I don't know if he was right, honestly. I mean,
yeah, but
wait. Let's be fair. One of the reasons Tennessee came back and made that a game was Georgia wasn't prepared for James Banks in the fourth quarter. They didn't know. They had not prepared on how to stop him.
That's true.
So it's that happens sometimes. So I'm not so sure he was right. And then the next year when he played Georgia, he lost 41-14 at home. So it looked really bad. Nico's never going to say that. If Nico misses a game, Dave Nico's going to be like, we got to do what's best for the team, and it's a team game, and just hope to be out there with my guys next week. He's going to say all that type of stuff. He's never going to say, if I was playing, we would have won by 2 touchdowns. He would never say that.
That is a fantastic point. So you don't even think next year, when he's more mature and leaders like Cooper Mays and Keenan Pili are gone, that he would ever make a statement like that, because he's going to be asked those type of questions more often, I would think, when he's the leader of this group. I mean, they're protecting him a little bit now.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the way I say it. There's Nico's going to do what he's coached to do, which is fine. I don't know if he's ever going to go beyond that, though. I don't know if you're ever going to see him on the sideline go at Jeff Saturday the way Peyton Manning did that one time. Mike W. like, Saturday, we're calling the effing play. I don't think you're ever going to see that from Nico. I just don't think it's in his nature. Now, you can question if that's a good thing for an NFL quarterback, because I think an NFL quarterback does need to have that moxie. But Nico is very much do my job. I'm going to do what I'm told to do. And I'm really, really, really good at it. And I'm going to try to win the game. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, while I'm telling you about one of our great friends, and that's Philip Lim at Asia Cafe, I want you to give me on the message board, as far as simply the mental approach to the game, does Nico remind you of anybody? And Caleb, you think about that as well. Asia Cafe, treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org. AsiaCafe.org. So I'm really interested in this. So message board, help us out here at Asia Cafe. They also have that Brazilian Cocoa Energy Booster Premix instant white coffee. AsiaCafe.org. It's been there since 1909, and they are fantastic. So you'll love Asia Cafe, and that coffee is unbelievable. I'm curious, what quarterback from a mental approach does Nico remind you of? I'll give you one.
Ready.
And you're going to think I'm just being biased. Troy Aikman. He was not I'm not talking at all about the physical play. Okay. Nico's more athletic. Nico probably, just because, Troy Aikman had an incredible arm. So I think they have similar arms. Nico can throw for more arm levels, which is more important nowadays, especially on the run. So any mobility goes to Nico, but they both were incredibly accurate, had incredibly strong arms. And Troy Aikman was never the yell at you guy until Barry Drunken Switzer showed up and they had no team discipline. So that's what Nico could become at one point, but probably he'll become that in the NFL, a get in your face guy. There's a famous clip where Troy Aikman's saying, nobody will coach his team and somebody's bleeping got to do it. And we're not going to play the clip because it'd be a copyright violation. I know that's before your time. So you give me an example. We get a couple more examples on the message board, and then we'll put it on the poll question. Go right ahead, Caleb. Does he remind you of anybody from his cool, calm approach perspective?
Yes. The one he reminds me of the most is actually Josh Dobbs. I think that's the type of quarterback. Josh Dobbs was the happy-go-lucky, all positive, just do our jobs type of guy, but he wasn't like. So the two quarterbacks that you and I both know of that grabbed players by their throats and carried them along and demanded that they step up were Peyton Manning and Hendon Hooker, right? Mm-hmm. And people don't know that about Hendon Hooker, but Hendon Hooker was very demanding, wasn't he?
Yes, I think he was in your face. I don't think Nico's that. Somebody suggested it on the message board, Crystal, with all due respect. I don't think he's like Hendon and Peyton. I think they will grab you by the collar and you're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
That. And one that's on the message board right now, Bryce Young. I think that's good. So we got Bryce Young. One. We got Bryce Young, Troy Aikman, Josh Dobbs, and then what I want to do is our fourth option. Other comment below. So, but before we get away from the poll question that's currently up, can you give us an update on that?
Yes. Okay. So, should the Vols be concerned about Nico Iamaleava under the lights? More than I thought. 48% say yes. It's his first SEC road game. 27% say no. He won't let it get to him. Dave, nobody agrees with you. I'm sorry. Nobody agrees that not being from SEC land is going to help.
Nobody.
But 25% do agree. No, OU isn't really SEC anyway.
Did you notice that from John Hoover yesterday? He was like, I don't know. How crazy could this get? 2 minutes, and we'll be back with John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel will join us. Also, this day in Tennessee sports history, and the one way that Tennessee can lose to Oklahoma, or the most likely way, we'll discuss in 2 minutes. Hit like and subscribe. This is Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang Convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
I've never asked for super chat stuff, but that to me is I want to provide you with free content supported by our advertisers. So when you see our advertisers up there, be sure and support them whenever possible. And I'm really proud. We had a company come to us and said, "Oh, we can run some ads on your site. We would like to do that." Nah. I want the people that are on our website and on our show to be people I've vetted, and they all are. So, but that being said, support our advertisers. Tell them you're doing so because of Off the Hook Sport. But that being said, all super chat money goes to Quincy Calhoun. And we had another one over the weekend. Super chat money goes to Quincy Calhoun. Caleb's a young son, what, 3 months old now?
3.5.
3.5 months old. There we go. All right. So the idea was not to ask for super chat money, but every bit of it goes to Quincy's college fund. So I will do so if you would like, but don't feel obligated. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to ask, and then Caleb decides to get frisky, and then look what happens.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So
how do you know that's how Quincy was conceived, Steve?
I don't want to know. All right, I'm going to give away the secret right now and how Oklahoma can beat Tennessee. Why am I doing that? What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Here is the most likely way that Oklahoma can beat Tennessee in its turnovers. No one is better in the SEC, not even close, in turnover margin. Let's discuss that for a moment. It shouldn't be a great surprise that Brent Venables, a defensive coach, has a defense that produces turnovers. So I call him up on Off the Hook Sports right now. Let's discuss some of the numbers. Oklahoma quarterback Jackson Arnold's the 13th highest rated quarterback in the SEC, has thrown 2 interceptions this season. Nico, for the record, is the 3rd highest rated quarterback in the nation, and we'll talk about his turnovers in just a second. Now, with Oklahoma, they lead the SEC in turnover differential with 2.6 per game. No other SEC team averages more than +1 in turnover margin. Okay. The Vols are at 0.3 in turnover margin. So, and Josh Heupel admitted it yesterday that Brent Venables didn't admit it. He said it yesterday. And that they do a great job of punching the ball out, and they do a great job in the secondary of disguising coverages. He didn't say that, but their front is really active, and they absolutely are a turnover team. Now, what do you take from that, Caleb? Because they haven't looked great. And turnovers, if you win the turnover differential, unless there's a massive talent gap, you win about 80% of the games if you win the turnover margin, right? So what do you make of that? Because there's 2 ways to go here. One, okay, they've gotten some fortunate turnovers, so they're really not that good because they haven't really played anybody. Or B, do you say, man, this is a young quarterback. This is a smaller tailback. Turnovers could be a factor. That's scary. Which direction do you go given those 2 options?
Given who they've played, I go with the former. I go with they're just not that good. And I think there's some evidence for this because as has been brought out, the teams they played are notoriously bad at taking care of the football. I mean, Temple is, as of right now, David, I'm pulling up Temple, they are dead last in the nation in turnover margin. So they just don't take care of the ball. And truth be told, Tulane is not much better, believe it or not. They are, I believe, I'm looking at it right now, tied for number 99 nationally in turnover margin. So again, this might have more weight. And Houston, by the way, the best team they played is dead even on turnover margin. So nobody they played is actually good at taking care of the football. And I think that now you could say this. You could say Oklahoma playing them skewed their turnover margins to where they are. That's not going to skew you to dead last in the nation, though. And so I just think that Oklahoma has played 3 bad teams. They've lucked out to win some games. And look, most of the time, guys, y'all are gonna. This is gonna come across as crazy, and people may disagree with me. And I think, Dave, every coach in football is gonna want to bash my head in for saying this. Most of the time, turnover margins, that is the part of football that is totally dictated by luck throughout the year. And I think that there's no science to it most of the time. Sometimes there is. I'm not going to deny sometimes there is. But I think most of the time, the turnover margin at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, between teams that are similar talent-wise, it's kind of dictated by luck.
Okay, that's it. Now, Tennessee is tied for 9th at the 0.3 turnover margin, the differential. Okay, but let's inspect those turnovers for a second. How many fumbles have they lost this year? Goose, not a one. How many interceptions have they thrown this year? 3. We talked with Jacob Warren yesterday, our Monday guest, and we certainly appreciate his appearance. Brought to you by Peak IV Hydration in Sevierville and in South Knoxville. They can make you feel great. Go to Peak IV Hydration, and you can order the patches too, which are fantastic. So let's look at the interceptions. 1, meaningless garbage time, right?
Correct.
2, as Jacob Warren, he didn't want to throw anybody under the bus, but as he hinted, Brew McCoy let up a little bit on what I thought was an errant throw until we discussed it. Somebody gave me a little tip. We discussed it, I think, in the post-game show. And then brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. And then the other interception, an elite pro quarterback takes the sack. But I don't expect Nico to be at that level right now. So that's understandable. Tennessee might be 0.3 right now, as they've been able to pick off one pass and gain 3 fumbles, but they very easily could be right there with Oklahoma and certainly above South Carolina. That's at +1 without much stretching or reaching. I mean, they could be right there. I think that this is a team that is actually very good, even though they're tied from 9th in protecting the ball when you really inspect the numbers. Now, at some point when we get to like the end of October, the numbers are the numbers, okay? And they'll even out, and I'm not going to inspect every single turnover. But right now, I think this is a team that protects the ball.
You know,
I agree. I can tell when you're going to disagree with me because there's like a long sigh.
No. I'm thinking I agree, but I think there's one caveat here on this, Dave, and we have to be honest here. And I'm pulling up the numbers now, but he didn't throw him under the bus, but that interception did seem like Brew McCoy broke off the route. The other interception that Nico threw was a busted block, which was a communication issue. Nico Iamaleava is, I hate to sound so old school, but he is in his first year starting with Tennessee. Typically, interceptions are communication issues. Is that fair to say? How many interceptions have you covered throughout your career that are almost always communication issues between the quarterback and the receiver?
Well, I mean, most every one where there's a good quarterback. I mean, because you don't see at this level just a lot of errant balls. Well, okay, the AJ Suggs interception for 99 yards. I mean, you don't
floating it out.
That was just he didn't have enough athletic ability, so you don't see that often.
Right.
Not at Tennessee.
This was the one concern I would say is sometimes in September you can maybe say that there's some sloppiness because teams are developing chemistry a little more. Look, Hendon Hooker, when he was en route to New York, David was his second year starting. He had some sloppy plays in September of 2022, didn't he? I mean, that Pittsburgh game, he made a mistake after the receivers were not on the same page a lot of times in that Pitt game that they had to win in overtime. And so with an Oklahoma defense that's opportunistic, this time of year, you're going to see that more often than not. I mean, I think that's why you see a lot of, the Tennessee-Florida series in the 90s oftentimes came down to it almost always came down to, wasn't it typically there was one team that just made a litany of mistakes in the game because they just really hadn't come together yet. They really hadn't developed their chemistry. That's how the series always played out, right?
Yes.
And most of the time it worked in Florida's favor, but in 98 it worked in Tennessee's favor. Because let's be honest, Tennessee beat Florida in 98 because Florida had not played together that long, and they made so many mistakes in that game. And
so let me ask you this. Does Tennessee have to break even or win the turnover battle to win at Oklahoma? And I'll remind you, this is under the lights and on the road, and you know how crowds can get with turnovers.
No, I don't think you have to break even. I particularly don't think that, because one underrated fact in college football today is that a sack is almost a turnover. Analytically, Dave, a sack is almost like a turnover.
It's very true.
Yeah. And Oklahoma has no offensive line, and Tennessee is going to bring pressure. So while Tennessee may lose the turnover battle, come on, they're going to win the sacks battle. I'd be very shocked if they didn't win the sacks battle. If they didn't have like 5 sacks to Oklahoma's 1.
Well, you could be absolutely right there, because Oklahoma's offensive line is very suspect, and we know that Tennessee has just a rotation of defensive linemen that could come in. Our poll question: who does Nico Iamaleava remind you of? Bryce Young got 54%. Troy Aikman got 0%. Josh Dobbs got 19%. Somebody else and commenting below got 26%, excuse me. So I ask you now, if Tennessee has to blank in the turnover battle to beat Oklahoma, win, break even, doesn't matter. I'll give you an update on that when we get a few more votes in. Caleb, are you more concerned about Dylan Sampson, a smaller back, turning the ball over against a team that's coached to punch the ball out, hat on the ball? You'll see that. You will see the Oklahoma red on the brown football at some point. And or are you more concerned with Nico turning the ball over? Because we just made an argument that Nico's interceptions arguably weren't his fault. Now I wonder if Dylan Sampson is ready for a team that's much bigger, much more physical than anybody he's played, and is coached to strip the ball.
Well, remember this, Dylan Sampson has been facing this Tennessee defensive line all season and throughout camp. So you would think he is.
Yeah, but I don't see Tennessee as the type of, I don't see them try to strip it. I mean, I think this is a real coach thing, Caleb. I don't think that this is just balls are popping free every once in a while. That sounds weird to say.
Well, Dylan Sampson, it's not like he's new to this style. I mean, Dylan Sampson ran for over 600 yards last year and played in all 12 games. So you have to think he's used to this. And if Oklahoma goes for the strip, that's a risk, right? That's also a chance for Dylan Sampson to shed more tackles and make more plays. So this could go either way. Okay,
so I'll just ask you this. What's your bigger concern? Nico turning the ball over, because he likes to extend plays too. He'll run. He's thrown 2 interceptions this year, even though we're not sure that they were all his fault. And the other question that I will ask you is simply him or Sampson. Who are you more worried about turnovers?
Nico only because a lot of things could not be Nico's fault, and he could turn the ball over. And with Sampson, it would be all on him. I think that Nico, again, it's not just him being a first-year starter. It's Brew McCoy coming back from injury. It's a couple of new receivers. Tennessee has to they haven't really fully developed a rapport yet. It's been three games. And by the way, one of the reasons it's hard to develop a rapport, the offense has been so darn vanilla because two of the games, my mind's drawing a blank here, but two of the games were against such bad teams that, they were honestly, that's just how it was going to go. And so they didn't get to play a lot. And so I don't think it's, I think it's Nico, but it's not Nico's fault.
John Adams coming up. Also, this day in Tennessee sports history, stat of the day is as well. Do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. Caleb, can you give us an update on the poll question and where we are? But we got a ton of people in the message board right now online that haven't hit the like button. So please do that right now. Thank you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that because we are close to giving away Rick Garman's this is no Rick Garman. Rick Terry's Grade 8 Garmin Challenge. We're going to give away a Garmin watch when we get 8,000 subscribers. We expect to hit 6,000 maybe by the end of today. And that's because of you and you're telling friends, and we greatly appreciate that. It's also brought to you by Sports Treasures. You can become a member of Hooker's Corner right there with that QR code. You can be a free member and subscribe to the show and win that Garmin from Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Now, here's another way to go about it. If you want to be a paid member for just $9.98, you get direct access to me and Caleb Calhoun, and you also get more recruiting coverage, which is pretty darn awesome. So just all you have to do is be a free member of Hooker's Corner to be eligible for our fantastic prize, which is that Garmin watch. And that's brought to you by Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Now, Rick Terry, I've known for a number of years, and he wants to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry? How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? Rick Terry Jewelry.com. And we thank our friends at Sports Treasures in North Knoxville. Over 5 million sports treasures. That's right. Right there in North Knoxville in over 35 years. So Caleb, give us an update on the poll question before we get to our stat of the day.
Okay, so the update on the poll question is Tennessee has to blink in the turnover battle to beat Oklahoma. 20% win, 20% say win, 41% say break even, and 39% say doesn't matter.
Okay, gorgeous. Stat of the day coming up, and John Adams as well. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Give me a minute off the hook sports.
I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, BanksJones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Just watching some video of Oklahoma's offensive line. I know they've had injuries, but boy, they got some issues. What do we got now? Stat of the day or this day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb?
Well, let's go through both of them real quick before we get our old buddy John on here. But let's start with this day in Tennessee history, and I owe everybody an apology. I yesterday, for some reason, thought it was September the 17th. And so the Johnny Majors win, I said that was his first win of the Tennessee era, was September the 17th. And I gave no love to September the 16th. So I'm just going to reverse it and do a September the 16th for this day, just to be fair to everybody.
It's crazy.
But
like going back in time. Hop in the DeLorean, Caleb.
Hey, it's I got to do what you got to do, right? But on this day in Tennessee history, which was yesterday, I got to give a shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, Condredge Holloway, because he made his home debut against the 6th ranked Penn State Nittany Lions in 1972, 52 years ago, and led Tennessee to a 28-21 win over Penn State, and began his legendary status with Tennessee, which lasted 3 years. And Tennessee never won a title with Condredge Holloway, but I think it's safe to say he was arguably the most exciting player to watch in Tennessee history at that time.
Yes, we should have him on sometime. Do you want to have Condredge on?
Would love to have Condredge on.
Okay. Last time I talked to him, I was getting cursed out for parking as a parking spot, but maybe he's forgotten.
It wasn't because Derek Dooley forced him to make people call if they wanted to enter the building when they were former Vols. Remember when he gave Condredge?
By the way, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. That's an example of Derek Dooley just absolutely, I hate this term, dumping on Condredge Holloway, because here he is, one of the greatest figures in Tennessee athletics history, and he basically is in charge of every former Vol that wants to come and see practice, which I see what Derek Dooley was getting at. It was stupid, but Condredge Holloway already had a full-time job, and back then everybody was excited by new coaches, so he'd get maybe a dozen requests a day. And so Derek Dooley just threw that all on him in the most unfair way. And I felt bad for Condredge, even though I got cussed out for being in this parking spot.
Well,
all right.
And let's not forget, Derek Dooley did that because he didn't want to look bad not knowing players who came in. That's what that was about.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. I mean, he said publicly, he goes, all I got to do is call Condredge. Good Lord. I mean, he's a legend. Should he be the guy? I mean, should he be the guy out there checking for players and checking to see if they actually played for Tennessee? Oh, David Pollock, did you play for Tennessee? Oh, well, come right in. I mean, it's just so the whole thing was so stupid. All right, our stat of the day.
Stat of the day, and it's a negative one, but you guys aren't going to like it, but I have to bring it up because Tennessee, not counting 1933 when the SEC was just newly formed, this is Tennessee's fourth time, playing an SEC newcomer their first year in the SEC. Want to know what the record is against SEC newcomers, Dave?
What is that?
0-3. 2012, they lost to Missouri at home. Derek Dooley got fired 2 weeks later. But the worst is 1992. Arkansas and South Carolina were SEC newcomers, and Tennessee lost to both of them by 1, which is why Johnny Majors got fired. That was part of the 3-game losing streak.
I ask you this too, Caleb. When we look back at that time, it kind of puts things in perspective. So Saturday's win is not a must win. I mean, Tennessee could lose this game and still make the college football playoff, which speaks to your importance of that, your opinion of that. So my question is, are we making too much out of this game?
I think it's the first game Tennessee fans can be excited about because there just hasn't been much competition through 3 weeks, and Tennessee wants a chance to show what it can do on the national stage. We've all been waiting for this ever since Nico became the starter at Tennessee. And so I think that Tennessee, I think this is their moment. I think I've told you guys from the start, this is Nico Iamaleava's moment to become the Heisman favorite. And I've been saying from the start, I think this will be the moment he does it. Not only that, because we all knew Josh Heupel, the goal was get past NC State, which they did, and then Josh Heupel could throw everything he's ever had at Oklahoma for revenge. I'm saying he could do that. You know what it could be like, Dave? Remember the Lamar Jackson crazy touchdown game against Florida State when Louisville scored like 60-something points against them in 2016?
I do.
Are we sure Josh Heupel wouldn't try to give Nico Iamaleava a Lamar Jackson type game like that?
I don't know. Let's just do this. Let's bring John Adams in here. John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel, always looking dapper as you would expect, and adjusting his camera because of our crazy streaming software that makes us all very vertical. John, how are you, sir? I think we got John. John, do we have you, sir? I can't hear you. I see your microphone is on, but for some reason I can't hear you. You want to try again? Say something to me, John. No.
John, your mic's not
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. There we go.
Yay!
The time before I did it, I wasn't even talking. I was just moving my lips.
I wondered. Yeah.
So Caleb, on air drama. Okay.
All right. Caleb, ask John that question.
John, I've been saying from the start that I said that Nico Iamaleava would become a Heisman favorite after the Oklahoma game. I said that at the beginning of the end of last season. And I'm sticking by that because I think Josh Heupel wants to go off. He wants to make a statement. He wants revenge, which we're going to get to. But do you think there is a possibility Josh Heupel tries to give Nico Iamaleava a Lamar Jackson versus Florida State type of performance? And I'm sure you remember that game in 2016 where Florida State had Louisville had 63 points and Lamar Jackson had all of them. It felt like. I think Lamar Jackson had more touchdowns than Florida State had first downs at one point. Do you think Heupel would try to do that with Nico this weekend?
No, I don't think he wants to run Nico that much. I certainly don't. There's too much at stake there. And Nico is, I think he's going to be at the end of the year. People will recognize him as the best prospect in the country, but he can't run like Lamar Jackson.
It's interesting you say that because I said when Tennessee plays Georgia that they'll have an advantage at quarterback, and I was kind of laughed off the set of a television appearance by our good buddy Bob Hodge. So I find it interesting you're that high on him as well. I want to get into one of your columns why the Oklahoma game could be a mismatch, but just give me your thumbnail sketch of what you've seen out of Nico, why you are that confident that he's going to be that good. And if you appreciate John being a part of the program, don't forget Neubert Collision Center. Neubert Collision Center, man, I will tell you one thing about of all our sponsors, I think I've known probably Jeff the longest, and Neubert Collision Center is absolutely been there for over 50 years. East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. So why are you so high on Nico?
Well, I think pretty much why everybody's high on him because of his arm strength, his release, quick release, his ability to see the whole field, just an instinctive player, excuse me, can do so many things. He doesn't. And remember, the NFL is drafting quarterbacks. They're looking at what a guy can become, not just what he's done. I'm not knocking Carson Beck, Georgia's quarterback, by any stretch. I think he's really good. He's a first-round draft pick, very polished, very accurate. But Nico he's 6'6". You don't have that many quarterbacks who are 6'6", and also with his agility and his sense of when to run, when not to run. And I love that quick release and the accuracy. You saw the deep throw he made last week against Kent State. I mean, that was one of the prettiest deep balls we've seen from a Tennessee quarterback. So to Chris Brazell. But I've been high on Nico for a long time. I think everybody around here feels the same way if you just watch the guy play.
Agreed. And I'll say the one way that Oklahoma can beat Tennessee is to win the turnover battle. And they've created a lot of turnovers. Our poll question, Tennessee has to blank in the turnover battle to beat Oklahoma. 21% say win, 49% say break even, 30% say the heck with it. It doesn't matter. Could the Tennessee Oklahoma game be a mismatch playing off one of John Adams' columns? What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, John, you wrote that the Tennessee-Oklahoma game could be a mismatch. Which side?
Where's most of your audience, Dave? Where are most of my subscribers? No, I mean, I've seen Oklahoma Tennessee games going into them thinking they would be a mismatch, and they were, and it was in in Oklahoma's favor. Yeah, I've watched Oklahoma through 3 games now. Its offensive line is troubled. Its wide receiving core, same thing. I think any good team would have a hard time making up for all the injuries Oklahoma's had, and they've been centered in the offensive line and in the wide receiving core. I thought this was a really good wide receiving core going into the season, and it would match up well against Tennessee's secondary. That to me would be Oklahoma's one of its advantages, a significant advantage. It doesn't have that advantage now. It's had 4 wide receivers hurt. Nick Anderson, probably its best receiver, hasn't played. Maybe he'll be ready for Tennessee. But yeah, that's not a favorable matchup necessarily for Oklahoma now. The other thing is that Oklahoma's offensive line just won't hold up against Tennessee's defensive front. I watched NC State in its opener against Western Carolina and reached the same conclusion. Even though it had 4 starters returning in the offensive line, it wasn't good enough to block Tennessee up front. I don't think Oklahoma is. Oklahoma has a really good offensive line coach of offensive lines, but it lost everybody last year. 2 guys to the NFL draft, another guy who was going to be its best offensive lineman, seemingly, Caden Green, transferred to Missouri. He's from the state of Missouri. So Oklahoma dove into the transfer portal, came up with a new offensive line, and but Branson Hickman, perhaps its best transfer in the offensive line from SMU, was injured in the first game. So it's just had a rash of injuries in 2 areas, and that's the main reason I think it's in for a rough night against Tennessee.
John, yeah, I agree with you. The offensive line versus the defensive line is the biggest, most gigantic mismatch out. I don't think there's any debate about that. I want to ask, though, because it's funny, we were just talking about Nico Iamaleava, and one of these 2 quarterbacks went to SEC Media Days, and it wasn't Nico Iamaleava, it was Jackson Arnold. Now, Jackson Arnold, comparing matchups just at that position real quick, hasn't been bad this year, but is he anywhere close to what Nico Iamaleava can be for Tennessee?
No, I mean, I think in terms of, again, I'm talking potential. He doesn't, Nico wowed me the first time I saw him play a game. Jackson Arnold, though, is really good. I'm not shortchanging him. I think he's got a really nice touch. He's quick. He's a really good runner. He started out in youth league football. He was a running back. And when you see him in the open field, he looks like a running back, not a good quarterback running. He can make a play. He saved Oklahoma against Tulane, 24-19, 3rd and 11. He broke from the pocket and ran 24 yards for a touchdown. That was the play in the game. So I really like him. But I don't think he's as good as Nico. And I also don't think he has nearly as much help as Nico. He's been under duress in these games. I like the way he played. There was, from what I've seen of him, when he is pressured, there's a little bit of that Baker Mayfield quality to him. And I think Tennessee fans can relate to that. When Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma came back from that 17-0 deficit against the Vols in 2015, and Mayfield just won the game in the second half. This is a guy, don't count him out on a play. And I think he will, though. He'll throw some interceptions. He'll force some things. But he's also got that real innate ability to make plays. So I'm not selling him short. I just think Nico has more tools.
John, that comeback by Mayfield was only made possible because of how Butch Jones was so scared to deliver the knockout blow against Oklahoma in that game. I just want to point that out.
Well, I mean, if I don't think we want to get into a debate about Butch Jones's talent or lack. I think that's well established. I mean,
John, I have a line I think you'd be proud of in a column. I said Tennessee could beat Oklahoma like Butch Jones should beat his barber after every trim. Bad haircut. Let's wrap up Butch Jones with this.
You suck, you jackass.
All right, go ahead, go.
Yeah, so sticking with this, I do want to flesh out what Dave talked about, though, because Dave had, this is relevant. Dave has brought up Oklahoma taking care of the football, not like Tennessee hasn't. They're not bad at turnovers. But do you think that's something that would come into play in this game, or is it just is Tennessee do they have such an advantage on the trenches? Do you think it's just not going to matter?
Well, I think they certainly have the advantage, defensive line versus Oklahoma's offensive line. And I think that would be very hard to overcome. I think, again, going back to preseason, when I looked at this game and why I thought Oklahoma could win, I gave a slight edge to Oklahoma. Part of it was that receiving core against Tennessee secondary, which we still really don't know how good the secondary is. We just don't. No. It's done fine, but no competition. So that to me was a distinct advantage. But it's lost that edge. So now we get back to the most obvious thing. You look at that, and Oklahoma's a troubled offensive line. It struggled to convert third downs against Temple in its opening game. I mean, it blew out Temple. It won 51-3 or something of that nature. But it struggled on third down and on some short yardage. That's one of those kind of games where you kind of get, well, Tennessee versus Kent State was an extreme example. But one of those games where you expect to see gaping holes and running backs dancing into the secondary, and you didn't see it that much. Oklahoma certainly won handedly. But, yeah, you just can't – that's hard to get past when you look at that. And I'm not – excuse me. Overall, this Oklahoma team, even if everything worked out well, this isn't a typical Oklahoma team. Not the one that we're so familiar with for its storied history in the sport. I mean, this is one of college football's iconic programs, all those great players. It just is not at that level right now, even at full strength. And it's not at full strength.
John, as far as Knoxville media, other than one, I respect your eye for football as much as anybody, except for one. And I'm curious. I was talking about me, but Tennessee's defensive line has the advantage over Oklahoma's offensive line. But let's flip-flop that. I think Tennessee's offensive line is good too. But there's a part of me, like you brought up with the secondary, of who have they been pushing around?
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma's got some really good defensive players, and it's got them at every level in their playmakers. Danny Stutzman at linebacker, he's an All-American. You watch that guy play. And they've got several defensive linemen, including a transfer, Deshaun. God, I forgot the guy's name. The lineman from Tennessee, Dejon Terry.
Dejon Terry, yeah, who had transferred from Kansas to Tennessee.
Yes, and then went on to Oklahoma. Big 12, SEC. They thought he was going back to Big 12, and then realized, they're in the SEC. But I'm sure it'll work out for him. But he's playing pretty well. And his backup puts more pressure on the quarterback than he does with an interior rush. So I like Oklahoma's defensive front. If Lincoln O'Reilly would have had this kind of defense when he had those lights-out offenses, he might have won it all one year. But So, yeah, I think this will give Tennessee we'll get a really good idea of how good Tennessee's offense is after this game. We think it's great, and it may be, but it hasn't been tested. I don't think this is a game where you can go in and expect to score 50 points. But you can score in the high 30s, and people are going to say, hey, they're the real deal, because they will be tested in so many ways. And I also think Brent Venables, who's a really good defensive coordinator, won 2 national titles at Clemson in that role, will be able to give Nico some looks and some tricks and gimmicks that maybe Nico hasn't seen. And, he might win some of those battles.
John, I want to address that. I remind you, John's appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
John, I'm actually going to play a little bit of devil's advocate. I think they've seen a different look in that 3-3 stack thing that NC State does. I think they've seen a lot of the twists and stunts and blitzing in practice, because I thought Tim Banks has been underrated, just hadn't had the talent for a couple of years. So I think Nico will be ready. I don't think the mental aspect is a big concern. Do you?
No, I don't think it is, but I also keep in mind, I don't want to make Nico out to be the greatest quarterback of all time just yet. I do still think he needs more reps. I wasn't that impressed, actually, other than that great deep ball he threw against Kent State. I didn't think he was as sharp overall as I've seen him in the other two, as I'd seen him in the other 2 games. I mean, he's not going to be great every play as good as he is. And I just think it's the combination of the things that Brent Venables can do, plus the personnel he has to execute that stuff. And these aren't just talented players on Oklahoma's defense. They're veteran players, a lot of starts. Billy Bowman at safety is a really good player. One of those guys that's really got the instincts for the ball. He intercepted a pass Saturday against Tulane. The ball was deflected twice before he picked it off. So, I mean, that's the epitome of having an eye for the ball. I mean, I'm saying all that, and I'm picking Tennessee to win by 2 touchdowns. So,
on the poll question on YouTube, like John Adams, I believe the Vols Sooners game is a mismatch. Yes, Vols roll with 88%, no close game, 12%. Obviously, our audience is pro Tennessee. Yeah. But, John, if they come away from this game with a close win or lose in this college football playoff era that we're in now of 12 teams, it's not really a must win anymore.
No, it's not. I mean, you still got Alabama and Georgia. I mean, everybody looks at 10-2 as a line of demarcation for this playoff. It may not be always, but 10-2, if you can get to 10-2 in the SEC, you got a good shot. So you could lose. Like I said, I expected Tennessee to make the playoff this year, and I expected it to lose to Oklahoma. Now, if you win against Oklahoma, you're set up like, well, just split against Alabama and Georgia, and you're 11-1. Lose both of them, and you're 10-2.
I like the line of demarcation, although I think when it comes to football, it should be the Mason-Dixie line, because everybody north of the Mason-Dixie line isn't as good as SEC. Fair?
Well, don't tell that to Ohio State.
No, I certainly will not.
All right. Columbus technically lower than the Mason-Dixon line latitudinally, though?
Look that up, John.
What?
I think Columbus is actually technically lower than the Mason-Dixon line. I can be wrong on that.
Taylor.
It's right there, man. It's right there. It's very close. I'm just saying.
All right. First person that addresses that in the message board and gives us a real answer will win an Off the Hook Sports t-shirt. How about that? So, John, I do want to get to another take that Caleb, I believe, brought up. And I think that this has been a little bit overdone, but is Josh Heupel out for revenge when it comes to this Oklahoma game? Again, John's appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
Johnny One, as I like to call him, or John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel with Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker. And John, switching gears a little bit for you. Is Josh Heupel out for revenge versus OU? He had his press conference on Monday. I didn't think for a second that when it began, I thought he was not going to say Oklahoma, like Butch Jones did the red team with Alabama. Well, Alabama responded by pounding the bleep out of him. And I really thought he was not going to say Oklahoma because he didn't for like the first 5 minutes. I was like, oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And then he opened up, and I thought he was genuine. And we had a person on yesterday, John Hoover, who has covered Oklahoma for a number of years, and he said Josh Heupel's not like that. All that being said, man, I have a hard time believing that he wouldn't tack on an extra touchdown, that he doesn't want to make Oklahoma eat it. You?
Oh, I think he's looking for revenge in the worst way. I think he wants to win this game more than any he's ever coached. Wants to win it by as big a margin as he can. He's not going to say anything of that like that, of course. Most coaches are that way. you go back and you look at coaches, they'll remember things from when they were playing against another team. As a player, they'll remember things and will carry that into us in their coaching. I don't think Kirby Smart ever beat Tennessee when he was at Georgia.
He didn't. You're right. That's correct.
And he's doing pretty good against Tennessee now. I think he has an edge for that kind of game. I think most coaches are motivated by that. My goodness, and I've compared Josh Heupel to Steve Spurrier in a lot of ways, but you look at Steve Spurrier, I mean, I remember one year he beat LSU 59-3, and then made a remark after the game, well, couldn't get a second interview with those guys when he was trying to get the head coaching job at LSU. I remember when he hung 70 points on Bill Curry's Kentucky team, and he said, well, I wasn't good enough to be on Coach Curry's staff. When Curry got the job, I think it was at Georgia Tech, and Spurrier wasn't retained. No, these guys, they might not, well, Spurrier even said it. Most of them don't. But, yeah, I think he wants to win this in the worst way, and I think he'll score as many points as he can.
Caleb, there's no way in God's green earth that human nature you wouldn't want to go beat the absolute Jesus out of them.
Absolutely. And, I'm sure Jeremy Pruitt was looking for revenge on Georgia when Kirby Smart didn't retain him on staff and he took the job at Tennessee. I'm sorry.
Well, he led Georgia for half. I think that was pretty good for Jeremy. He could have just walked away right then and said, showed you, didn't I?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, take that, Kirby.
John, I think between Steve Spurrier, the people you brought up, I agree. I think they take things better. I think it goes deeper with Josh Heupel. It's not just that Bob Stoops let him go. It's Bob Stoops let him go because he wanted to scapegoat him for two things. One, to keep his brother from getting fired, who should have been fired at the time. But one of the things that I want to get your thoughts on this, we had John Hoover on yesterday, and apparently the reason that offense kind of sputtered in 2014 was because Bob Stoops fell in love with Johnny Manziel and forced Josh Heupel to move away from the air raid into an RPO offense so he can make Trevor Knight Johnny Manziel. And Josh Heupel kept fighting Bob Stoops, saying Trevor Knight can't do this. He's not Johnny Manziel. And Bob Stoops insisted he was. He wasn't. The offense sputtered. Bob Stoops fires Josh Heupel and then goes and hires Lincoln Riley to run the offense Josh Heupel wanted to run. Don't you think that makes him even angrier that happened?
Well, I mean, I don't have a first-hand source on what happened there. I've heard another side of it too, from Oklahoma people, and I don't know what actually happened. But when you look at what Bob Stoops did, he ended up with a better offense.
He did. He made the college football playoff the next year.
Yeah. So Lincoln Riley, great offensive coordinator. Josh Heupel, great offensive coordinator too. And I wonder if because Bob Stoops coached Josh Heupel, and Josh Heupel just kind of came up under Bob. He was a graduate assistant under Bob Stoops, and he coached tight ends. He coached quarterbacks, and he became co-offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. I think sometimes when coaches are in that situation, they still look, maybe he still looked at Josh Heupel as one of his players. I mean, that he's coaching. Whereas he brings in a guy from Lincoln Riley, he may be more apt to give him a free rein than the player he coached, who's now his assistant coach. I don't know. It's just, there may be nothing to that theory, but I have thought about that in other situations. When you coach a player, even though they later become your assistant coach or coordinator under you, still kind of look at them as your player. And it's like they need to learn more.
Okay, now you said something that really piqued my interest. You said you've heard another version from the Oklahoma side. I want to hear that. I want to remind people, work trucks, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's Work Trucks intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time With less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work, the process is quick and easy. Choosing a vehicle from Work Trucks. Check out those Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod, work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like trains or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you. Get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. And if you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks business has to have. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go right there. WorkTrucksLLC.com. That's Work Trucks with an X. Don't risk your future in business on the wrong piece of equipment. Work Trucks with an X. They'll find the perfect truck, outfit it, make sure it fits your needs to a T. Proud supporter of the Tennessee Vols. Work Trucks. So you said you've heard a different version than we have, John, of why Josh Heupel was let go at Oklahoma. What's the other story?
Well, and I don't have a really good source on this. So, I mean, what you just laid out may be absolutely correct. It was just the idea that the offense was getting a little stagnant, and Bob Stoops wanted to revitalize it in and bring a different mindset into it. And again, that could get back to my theory. Sometimes when you have a player who later becomes your coach, you aren't as apt to give him a free rein as you are maybe somebody you bring in. But I don't know if that, I mean, what you guys heard yesterday, that's all speculative. And I don't think it really matters now, because I think the move worked out well for both programs. Oklahoma got better, went to the playoffs, didn't win a national championship, though. And I think Josh Heupel got better as an offensive coordinator. And to your point, maybe Josh Heupel didn't have the freedom at Oklahoma that he had elsewhere. Maybe Bob Stoops kind of said, well, he's my player. He's come up through the ranks here, but I still gotta keep a hand on this. And Josh Heupel, nobody questions now what a great play caller he is. So however it happened, I think Josh Heupel benefited from the switch, because maybe he would have never. We say a lot of people thought he was destined to be the head coach at Oklahoma. Maybe he wouldn't have been. And so it's worked out well for him.
All right. Sorry about that. Caleb, I want you to jump in here. Our poll question is on YouTube. Will Josh Heupel pound Oklahoma if he can? Yes, it's personal. No, just another game. John, do you want to guess where it stands right now, percentage-wise?
I think most Tennessee fans are pretty skittish about this game and feel like it could be a blowout the other way with OU. Is that what your poll shows?
Will Josh Heupel pound Oklahoma if he can? 91% say yes, it's personal. No, just another game.
So, John,
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I guess the last question I'd ask on this topic is this, because Spurrier made it obvious. Spurrier didn't hide things. Would Josh Heupel make it obvious, or would he do it subtly? Like, okay, maybe I'm leaving Nico Iamaleava a drive longer than I should if the game's in hand. Or maybe I'll throw a trick play in the third quarter when I'm already up by 3 scores.
Or maybe I'll try an onside kick in the middle of a 37-point first quarter. They won't see that one coming. No, Josh Heupel he doesn't tip his hand. Yeah, he won't do it like Spurrier had to. Spurrier just didn't get revenge. He had so much fun getting revenge.
I know.
I mean, he made it. If you're going to get revenge, isn't it best kind of just to show the whole world? I mean, I still that epic quote against Georgia after humbling Georgia there in Athens, and Steve Spurrier saying in the post-game press conference, well, man, Georgia recruits all these great players. I don't know what happens to them when they get here.
Direct shot at drunken man golf.
I've got a great line that Josh Heupel can steal if he wants to get more Spurrier-like. And how about say, after a big victory against Oklahoma on Saturday, he says, after Well, it's a long season. You never know. We might see them in the college football playoffs sooner or later. Pretty good one.
Or he might say, he could say something about, even though we beat them handily, I still think Oklahoma's a bowl. I'll tell you that right now. They'll be playing in the postseason.
Max Arnold could win MVP of the Citrus Bowl, so their season's not over.
Jackson Arnold, not Max.
Jackson Arnold. Yeah. Max Arnold is a trainer for Tennessee. All right. The next thing we want to get to, it's one of Caleb's favorite segments. It's one of John's favorite segments. It's one of my favorite segments. It is our football IQ, and it'll be packaged in 4 downs right now.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All righty. Cooper Mays will tell you what to do. It's pretty darn simple, and that is this.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, what down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
Caleb, give me your first instance of coaching stupidity.
I'm going to throw a shout out to old Neil Brown of West Virginia. Mountaineers fans thought that they were building something last year. And, John, I don't know if you saw West Virginia lose to Pittsburgh over the weekend, but Neil Brown had the most conservative play calling game I've ever seen in a shootout of 30 when he lost 38-34. He punted twice on 4th and 2 near midfield. And y'all know how I feel about punting. But if it's a shootout and you're within 5 yards of midfield, you don't punt on 4th and 2. You don't.
You suck, you jackass.
And then with the lead late in the game, it was 34-31. Pittsburgh had 2 timeouts left and the 2-minute warning. Neil Brown did it. Let me run it twice and then call a pass and see what happens and then punt and let my defense try to win.
Just shoot him.
I can still remember the first time John ever said that on the air, and I recoiled in fear because it got to be funny over the years. But the first time he said it, I was like, whoa, is that too strong?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Who's next, Caleb?
Now, this is going to be debatable to some people, but I don't think you do it. Speaking of punting, Mark Stoops, the end of that Georgia game. I get it's a defensive game, but 4th down near midfield within 3 minutes to go, 13-12, you've got to go for it. You've got to go for it in that situation. You don't punt it back to Georgia, and then they punt it and they lose the game because of it.
Oh, that stood out to me above everything else. You got to know your opponent. You got to know the history. Georgia has this unusual ability under Kirby Smart to flip a switch. It just, we need to go win the game now. Flip the switch. We win. I mean, at no point in that game did I think Georgia would lose. We've seen Georgia do this before. I knew that they weren't going to dominate Kentucky like they could have. So you're Mark Stoops. Do you really want to? This is your chance. This is as good of a chance as you'll ever have to beat Georgia. You got to go for it in 4th down there. I don't care if it's 4th and 10. I'd go for it there because Georgia is going to get the ball back and it's going to pretty much put the game away.
And we knew Carson Beck. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and even though he played poorly, it's Carson Beck. You know he's going to be able to put the game away when he wants to.
Yeah, I don't know. But see, it's almost like Kentucky can come away from this game and say, we played Georgia closer than anybody has all season. Oh, we'll put them in a bowl game and give Mark Stoops a raise.
That's what it felt like he did right there.
Wow. It in 2 moments where I've wondered if SEC coaches were just trying to get fired. One was when Billy Napier named a captain, named an offensive lineman a captain that instead of chasing down an interception, just ran straight to the sidelines and said, "To heck with hustle." And the other would be that punt, where I'm like, does he want to get fired and get the buyout? Because Kentucky, you're never going to win at a high level, so just fire me, please.
No, Mark Stoops has one of the best coaching jobs in America. He's still going to win 6 games. He's going to a bowl, and he'll probably get a raise.
That's absolutely
people
right.
Say he's the winningest coach in Kentucky history. Yeah, he won more games than Bear Bryant did. So what if Bear Bryant was only there for a few minutes?
We're on 3rd down, correct? They're questioning me on the message board. What down we're on? Caleb, help me.
Yep, we're on 3rd down.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
All right, 3rd down. Who's next?
Let's head out west for
coaches segment.
Let's head out west for a Power 5 Group of 5 matchup. Washington State, Washington. Judd Fish, who I am a fan of, had the worst 4th down decision of all time. It was 4th and 1. At 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, Washington's trailing 24-19 with a little over a minute to go. And he calls a timeout, fail number 1, because then he didn't have enough timeouts to stop the clock when he didn't get the 4th down. And coming out of the timeout, he decides, let me do a speed option play with an air raid quarterback. Spoiler alert, it didn't work.
Just take him out and hang him. Where's that guillotine when we need it?
Well, you probably didn't hear, but there was at one point where there was an Oklahoma podcast that it made me think of you, because the guy said, if any Oklahoma coach loses to Josh Heupel, he should be fired on the spot. I mean, right now it's one of the better programs in the nation. At least it looks that way through 3 games. There would be, unless you just got totally blown out, I mean, there would be no shame in losing to Tennessee.
No, but that's fan reaction. It's I know this doesn't really fit the format, but we're talking about dumb coaching decisions. I'm really changing my opinion of Mike Elko. I thought that was a pretty good hire by the Aggies. Okay, we saw his offense, and we saw Connor Wegman in that season opener against Notre Dame, the team that lost to Northern Illinois. Then we saw its rousing victory over Florida Saturday with a different quarterback, Marcel Reed, who looked really, really good. Mike Elko's not sure who he's going to start this week. It's a really tough call. I mean, I'm not sure kind of, huh?
Josh Heupel did this. Josh Heupel did the same thing in 2021 after Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton both played. He said, "I'm not sure who I'm going to play against Missouri to open October." We all knew it was going to be Hendon Hooker. He was the better one.
Well, we would think it'll be, but see, I couldn't understand why in the world watching that Texas A&M Notre Dame game that Elko kept trotting Wegman out there. He was awful. Just awful from start to finish. You've got 2 other backups that have proved themselves. Give one of them a shot. At least one series.
No, I'm with you, John. Basically, the way things work, if Caleb and I both endorse a hire, like we did Brian Kelly and like we did Mike Elko, then it ends up blowing up in our face. When we're a little bit split, because I thought the Marcus Freeman hire was an awful hire. Caleb, I think you kind of liked it. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Well, then you're also horrible. So I guess that you were against you thought the Billy Napier thing was a bad hire, Caleb, right?
Yes, because I saw Derek Dooley from the start with Billy Napier. So
the thing I love about Napier, though, he's so detail oriented.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Oh gosh, if I hear that one more time, John.
You know what he should do after one of these post games when his team has been blasted by fill in the blank. Hold up a chart that shows what his players ate for breakfast that morning.
Good idea. All right.
Just to show how detailed he is.
If they were to do like a monument of Florida coaches, they could do like a little line. They could do Steve Spurrier, known for the fun and gun. Then they could do Urban Meyer, known for an innovative offense and elite talent. And then they could do Billy Napier returns emails.
Well, guys, I got Billy Napier's successor on this list.
All right, here we go.
His
4th down.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Post on the message board says become a secretary then, Billy. All right. What do you got, Kim?
By the way, he's not Billy Napier's successor. I just wanted to joke, but Shane Beamer and LSU in South Carolina, he stole a chance for South Carolina to upset LSU last weekend. I mean, there were mistakes after mistakes, but the end of the game, I don't know if you guys saw, South Carolina's trailing 36-33. They're at the LSU 32-yard line with 18 seconds to go and a timeout. What does Shane Beamer do? Calls a draw, lets the clock run down to 4 seconds to try a 49-yard field goal with the kicker who's never made a kick beyond 45 yards. And, of course, it misses. And it was very clear in that moment. He wanted to put all the blame on his kicker if his kicker missed it. He was scared to put any blame on himself for maybe making the wrong call to try to make it easier field goal. He should be fired for that alone.
No, you can't fire him because he amuses me too much on the sideline.
Amen.
Either way, when his team's doing great, he's sitting over there. Yep, here we come. Here we come. And then when his team is doing horribly, he's sitting over there. Here we come. We're the Gamecocks. You're not.
Comment of the day from Elias. I'm sure Billy Napier makes a fine cup of coffee.
Oh, man. But seriously, like Shane Beamer doing that, you got to get closer for a field goal, right? That's just basic rules, college football 101, that you can't let your kicker try 49-yard field goal that he's never made.
I've seen other coaches, and I think it's stupid. Don't get me wrong. I hate it when coach heading up for a field goal too soon. First of all, this isn't the NFL, and you can't. NFL, you get a chip shot field goal, the guy's going to make it. If he doesn't, he's fired. Okay, so he knows he's got to make it. In college, we see guys kick it under the crossbar from 30-yard times, and we don't know about the snap. Oh, wait, what was going on with that Kent State center in that Tennessee game?
I
really
know.
Weird.
Well, Kenny Burns, the head coach again. That's like some CEO stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like he just wanted to show how. No, it's kind of like he wanted to show how strong he was, how good he'd been in the weight room. Watch this. I'm going to snap it 30 yards over the guy's head, and it'll only bounce once before it hits the end zone. Yes.
So what you're saying is Joe Milton lined up at center that game. Sorry. One last one before you guys go. This is a fifth down, but
I've got a good image of that though. Joe Milton centering the ball to midfield on an extra point attempt.
I can see that.
You guys didn't torture yourself watching this game. I did, so you didn't have to. But Friday night, Kansas played UNLV, and they lost 23-20. But on their final drive, with a minute to go, Lance Leipold had all 3 timeouts left. He called 2 quarterback draws and used 2 timeouts right after that. So, of course, when he didn't get the first down, UNLV ran out the clock and won.
Like, that is total bullshit.
Bury him alive.
All right. John, great stuff, buddy. Appreciate you as always.
Hey, good job, Caleb, on those. You do a really good job finding these coaching errors.
Well, I would give him credit, but it's not that hard.
It's really not. If you watch a football game, it's so easy to find. This came to me from watching the Super Bowl, the Falcons Super Bowl against the Patriots, when everybody talked about how Tom Brady played so well. I'm like, yeah, but if you don't throw the ball on 3rd and 1 up 28-12 with 7 minutes to go, and if you don't throw the ball again in field goal range, Tom Brady can't make that comeback.
I think, do you keep the record of your coaching blunders from week to week, Caleb, or do you just move on?
I got them saved, yeah.
Okay, I think maybe we could, in mid-season, we might want to have a mid-season honor roll.
Oh my gosh, that's a good one.
That's nice. That's nice. And then at the end of the year, we could have our college football playoff of idiots. 12, and we bracket it down. Who's the dumbest by the end of the year? I think we're on to something.
I'm loving this, guys.
Hit like and subscribe if you want to see the college football playoff of idiots.
Bury them alive.
All right. John, we appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Keep up the great work.
See you guys.
See you. John Adams, the Knoxville News Sentinel. His appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. We've had a lot of fun. We're going to continue to, for the most part, have a lighthearted, fun show. But I think a serious topic, as you have an Oklahoma media member who, thinks it's okay to make fun of Josh Heupel being overweight. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang Convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, Caleb. I'm going to dive into this. We've had a lot of fun on the show. It's The Last Look, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. And I think this is out of bounds. You go ahead and play it. And this is whom? Set it up so that everybody knows who this is, and then you're welcome to tweet at him.
Okay, so this is TJ Perry, a radio show host of KREF, which is a radio station in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm going to say up front, to be fair, they like kind of do like a clean Howard Sternish type show. They are funny. It's kind of like Howard Stern meets college football. Is that fair to say? So they do try to add humor, but
well, no, because I think Howard Stern is one of the best interviewers of all time. So I don't think they compare. I'm not saying they
compare, but I mean, what they try
I don't think
to
they can take out Howard Stern's trash.
They try to do humor, is what I'm saying. And so,
okay. Well, we do humor, but we don't make fun of people being fat.
Yeah, and so this is I'm going to play the clip, and you guys let me know what you think. This is what he said, TJ Perry said about Josh Heupel, I believe, yesterday. So here we go. I'm just going to play it now.
I've just heard from a friend that says, hey, I've got a blow-up 6-foot turkey I put out for Thanksgiving. You can take down there for you to put out.
Again, this is TJ making fun of one of the greatest Sooners of all time.
But he's got a turkey turkey neck. What do you want me to say?
Thank you.
I'm just telling it like it is.
Thank you for leading us to our
Thank you for the national championship. I loved it. But now he's enemy number one. SEC game 1. He's enemy number 1. Let's go kick him.
Yeah. Do we pay tribute to him before the game or no?
No.
Okay. Couple things to unpack there. Turkey neck, I guess you could argue I have a little bit of one. It's what happens when you get older and you've carried extra weight in your life. The second thing is, do you honor him? Well, hell yeah, you honor him. He won you a national championship. You at least do something for him. Let's start with number 1. Was that out of bounds, Caleb?
So I was trying to, because I had never heard the phrase turkey neck before. So I was doing my research on it. And turkey neck refers to people who have like loose skin on their neck, I guess, right? That's the joke. Typically, if you have loose skin on your neck and you're making fun of somebody about it, you're making fun of the fact that they have had extra weight put on. So there's really no way around it. It's fat shaming, isn't it?
No, it didn't take me that long to think about it. Absolutely. And Philip Fulmer used to have a nickname. Again, I'm not going to repeat it, but probably a lot of you all know it, that referred to his head as well. And it was basically fat shaming as well. And I always found it interesting that among the media members that use that term, it was most oftentimes the guys who broke the least amount of news and did the worst work that used that. So to me, it's an easy way out to get attention. It worked because we're talking about it. And there was a part of me, and I want to hear from you on the message board. There was a part of me that maybe didn't even want to talk about it. But I think it's important in that he should be received as a quarterback that won them a national championship. I mean, for goodness sake, there was talk T. Martin could be an assistant coach at Tennessee. Now, we all know in retrospect that Butch Jones gave him a sham interview and he was never really a candidate. But T. Martin, if he had gotten fired as part of that Butch Jones staff, would you not still celebrate him if he came back to Tennessee? I mean, let's say he's the head coach of Miami. I'm just throwing a random team out. Head coach of Miami, or the head coach of South Carolina, which is a doable type of job given his coaching career and path. Wouldn't you, when he comes back to South Carolina, when he comes back to Knoxville, Neyland Stadium, wouldn't you honor him with at least a couple of lines that Jeff Jarnigan, the PA announcer, could say positive about T. Martin? I'm not saying stop the game and shine his ring or anything, but goodness gracious, that to me, if you're trying to be funny, and if those guys see this and you want me to come on your show, I will tell you exactly how that's not funny. And it's sad and it's lazy is what it is. We talk about turnover differential in this game. You talk about a guy, or in this show, you talk about a guy's neck before the game.
You talk about a guy's neck who not only did he win you your only national championship in the last 40 years, but he also was your offensive coordinator for 4 years. And as we have now found out, was totally railroaded by Bob Stoops, your head coach at that time, who ended up, a lot of people don't know this, but Bob Stoops retired. He retired because of the Joe Mixon scandal. I'm just going to tell you guys that straight up. He retired because of the really bad look for the Joe Mixon thing. And so retired from a bad look of a bad scandal. And quite honestly, we're finding out now that he was unfairly railroaded and he never wanted to leave Oklahoma. So you guys are coming at him because, oh, he's the enemy. He didn't want to be the enemy. He'd have loved to have stayed at Oklahoma and been on the trajectory to a head coach and never had a chance to do it. And you're right. I don't know if Tennessee would honor T. Martin if South Carolina, if like say what your scenario, South Carolina goes to visit Tennessee, T. Martin's coaching South Carolina. I don't know if you honor him that week. I don't know if you want those distractions, but like you don't like. No Tennessee fan would ever say negative things about T. Martin. Ever. Like that would never be done. No one would make fun of his looks. And we have two examples of this, by the way. The Lady Vols have had to fire 2 head coaches that one was Pat Summitt's right-hand woman throughout all of her national championships, the first All-American in Holly Warlick, and then the next was Kelly Harper. We never attacked their character. We never attacked their looks. We never attacked anything like that, and we never would, because there's no reason to, because, again, that's what they did as head coaches that did not work out. Takes away nothing from what they did as players for the university. And no one would ever attack what they looked like. It's weird. It's bitter. It's petty. And it's what I said at the top of the show. Oklahoma fans are really, and Oklahoma media and Oklahoma people covering them. This goes back to last week with the shots that were being taken at Josh Heupel from that other Sooners podcast. They're really insecure about the fact that they know they should have Josh Heupel right now. And not
I was going to lead you to that, because people are saying that in the message board, and I think you nailed it. Those comments say one thing: they're not confident, they are scared. Stanley says very much cheap shot at a great player and a better coach. And here's the thing, too, guys. I mean, I've been way fatter than Josh Heupel, and it's been something that I've dealt with. Now, somebody said that you make fun of Butch Jones's hair. Well, that's just a bad decision. Okay. I mean,
you can do something about your hair.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes when you're overweight, there's some sort of oral fixation, or there's some sort of something psychologically that makes you consume too much. Now, I'm not saying you can't overcome it, and I'm not defending all fat people. I wasn't defending myself for getting fat a couple times, 3-4 times in my life. But yeah, there's a big difference between Butch Jones's hair and, I mean, really, I've been around Josh Heupel recently. He's not that overweight. You're really just taking a shot at him physically, and it's not as much a weight shot as just the way he looks. He could probably drop 40 pounds and still have a little bit of loose skin around his neck. I mean, if you look back at him when he was a player, he kind of had that recessed chin. He doesn't have a big jawbone. So I do, which probably makes up for my semi-turkey neck, but I don't know. Found it very distasteful. And again, this should be one of your heroes. There's a statue of him.
Oh, I don't think there is a statue of him, because he technically didn't win a Heisman. Isn't that what we learned yesterday? They do statues for their Heisman winners.
Oh, I thought it was statue for national championship. Excuse me.
Statues for their Heisman winners. Yeah, and by the way, I'll be straight up with you. In some cases, I think fat shaming I think it actually contributes to the obesity crisis in this country, for being honest. By the way, Josh Heupel's not obese, so I don't even know why I'm bringing that up. But I would say that if you're going to fat shame or make fun of people for their looks, I don't mind it for players who need to be in shape. I didn't mind Kobe fat shaming Shaq when Shaq got out of shape, and because it's his job to be in shape and go win titles, right? And yes. I have no problem, and I will always do it to this day. I will fat shame Jamarcus Russell because he got that big contract, and as Stephen A said, spent all that money on a bunch of donuts.
Okay, now let me ask you this serious question. Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Very serious question here. And that is, this was brought up to me back in the 2000s by somebody I respect a lot. Said there's a contention that how can you expect your players to be in elite shape if you're not in at least good shape? Okay, Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. We'd save the best for last. Look at me, LASIK, no contacts, and no glasses. I'll tell you exactly how I lost the weight.
To visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at ccteyes.com. Simply the best.
Okay, that argument under Philip Fulmer, did it ever hold water? How can he expect his players to be disciplined? I think I said in shape, but I didn't mean that. Disciplined off the field, which would include not getting in trouble, if he can't be disciplined from a nutrition standpoint. I never thought that. I don't want to be misquoted as that, okay? But that there were a lot of people who thought that in the early 2000s when Tennessee was slipping in discipline.
Here's why I don't think that's fair. Philip Fulmer's job is not to stay in shape on the field. We don't know, and we know this with people, somebody like Philip Fulmer. Think of all the things that go into coaching. Say you're a former offensive lineman, right? Fulmer's a former offensive lineman, so he's already a bigger guy, right? Just naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now he's coaching football, and it's such a high stress job that if if the stress is working out every day to stay in shape and condition like the players do, then he probably would be in shape. And his stress is flying across the country to talk to recruits all the time, sitting in an office for 8 hours studying film. That type of stress adds weight to people who are typically bigger already. So it's even harder sometimes to lose weight. So it's not like, put it this way, it's not like Philip Fulmer got big because he was lazy and wanting to stuff his face. You know what I mean? Like Jamarcus Russell. Yeah, I'm going to keep throwing shots at him because he's the most disgraceful person to ever be an NFL player. And
You bring up a really good point. When I used to travel a lot, it was darn near impossible to not eat poorly. And I had an expense account. I mean, I could go someplace, but if you needed to churn something fast and eat something so you could get back and right, yeah, I made poor eating choices, and it was much more difficult. And Philip Fulmer was one of the greatest recruiters that I've ever seen. So he was on the road a lot more than most head coaches. So people ask me how I lose weight. I just decided, I guess about 3 years ago, I was just going to lift a lot. And so I added muscle mass, and eventually that offset the amount of food I ate. It's not what you want to hear because everybody wants to be in bikini shape in 2 weeks, Caleb, but it was about a 2-year process.
bikini season for me all year round.
and frankly, I've gone the other way recently, which, I'm working on. You called me this morning, and what was I doing?
Oh, he was lifting. Yeah.
I was huffing. I just, maybe they can have me on, and I can be turkey neck number.
Well, and also, let's be fair. When people say that, I mean, which head coach in the NFL has won 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls?
Oh, yeah.
Andy Reid. I don't think anybody, and by the way, have you noticed his players go to war for him a lot? And so he's a player's coach. They love him. I think coaching in the NFL is overrated. I mean, when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes, you and I could probably win a Super Bowl here or there. But yeah,
I would disagree with that because I thought he was limited with Donovan McNabb and got the most out of the Eagles. I think he's ahead of the curve.
Oh, I think so too. But people always say that, but he never won a Super Bowl till he got Patrick Mahomes. It's not like he won a Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb.
Well, Derek Dooley looked like he could be on the front of a Sears catalog, but I'll tell you right now, I think you'd rather have Josh Heupel than Derek Dooley, right?
Derek Dooley is. If you were doing a casting call for someone to play an SEC coach in a movie, Derek Dooley could play that role, right? With his accent and his haircut and the way he looks. Like, whenever Hollywood does a movie, that's Derek Dooley.
I'm going to share something else. And I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but always fear the good-looking coach. Because just like women are great salesmen in some positions, you make decisions sometimes off what you see visually and the impression that makes. I know of one high school coach that's a friend of mine that he has not gotten jobs because he's shorter, maybe a little overweight like me. And a good-looking dude got it. So I thought that when Lane Kiffin was hired, I was like, uh-oh. Because he's a good-looking guy. Always fear the good-looking coach. When you hire that guy, there's a pretty good chance that Shane Beamer's a fairly good-looking dude.
By the way, it's the same. You're right. And you said it with women. The good-looking pharmaceutical sales rep, they're trying to sell you a drug that'll get you hooked and may kill you in the future.
Yes.
I mean, that's what they're doing.
Yes. And we'll leave you on that oxy note. Have a fantastic day, everyone. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, and I've got an awesome announcement. 2 awesome announcements, if you don't care. Hit the like button right now because we just reached 6,000 subscribers. 6,000 subscribers. And guys, we couldn't do any of this without you. I can't tell you how much it means. And we want you to be sure and tell your friends because we're with you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Also with the Last Look post-game show brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn after every game. The Ball Report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. And Caleb confirmed our next announcement is we will have Josh Pate tomorrow on the program along with Jimmy Heim. So Josh just got back with me. In my opinion, right now, from a national perspective, there's nobody better. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation